Welcome to The Issue on your TV. I'm Mark Carr, and you notice we're still broadcasting The Issue from our homes, so everyone, my co-hosts, guests, producer, are safe. And we'll be broadcasting this way for the foreseeable future of The Issue to keep the community updated. My co-host this week is Angelo Bentavania, Regional and Local Councillor for Ward 6 in Burlington. Hello, Angelo. Is the family still coping well with the virus?
They certainly are. We're all fine. We're all healthy, and hope everyone else is doing just as well in their homes. It was a great weekend for all of our families, I'm sure, and certainly was with mine.
Have you and council been able to maintain your mandated requirements from the province for planning and development of new developments?
So far, everything's been actually going very smoothly. It's interesting you brought the development stuff up, which we can bring in on another show. We just figured out a way to do all this virtually. I think it's the first time our staff's been working very, very hard at trying to get all applications in the future virtually in full size so that people can actually go through the application process online. And that's a huge step for our planning department and our staff. Kudos to them. So,
well, on top of your regular duties, like the planning new developments and so on, I know you've been busy with another group. And can you give some context to what that means? And that should segue nicely into our guest today.
Well, as you all know, we all get involved with different groups. I'm on a task force with City. Our guest today, I just want to bring up is Amber Rushton, who is our ECG leader. She is the the Burlington Emergency Control Group, and she is the one who is behind the scenes that people don't see. Our community operates every day. We take many things for granted, and Amber, I think I said Ashley for some reason, but anyways, Amber Rushton, I just want to introduce her before we move forward, as one of those individuals that we never get to see. She and her team, professionals, make all this happen for the city, and has been incredibly instrumental in keeping us all safe, informed throughout this whole COVID-19 pandemic. So, Amber, welcome to the show, and thank you for participating and giving our residents a snapshot of what you actually do behind the scenes.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, Angelo. The pleasure is all mine. We do work tirelessly behind the scenes, and the last 4 months have especially been a lot of work, but we are grateful to have so much support across the city. We've had amazing feedback and support from the community as well as council and the mayor, so we are forever grateful. And I'm excited to just share what's been going on behind the scenes for all of you today.
Well, Amber, if you can give some context to the job that you're doing, how would you couch that?
Yeah, sure. So in any type of emergency that comes up, we have a select group of individuals that reside within what's called the Emergency Control Group. And members of the Emergency Control Group consist of executive directors, managers, supervisors across the city that are trained in crisis and emergency response and management practices under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. So we work throughout the year to practice our emergency plans, to train in appropriate response measures, and to collaborate so that we're prepared for incidents like we're walking through today.
Amber, if I can just follow that up a little bit, the city does have an important role to play during an emergency crisis. But so does the region, so does the province, and so does the federal government. How are those incorporated into the emergency, into your emergency group?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. I'll try and break it down for all of our listeners this evening. Under the federal government, under Public Safety Canada, we have the public safety pillar known as emergency management. So that extends down into the provincial authorities, and in the province of Ontario, that falls under the Office of the Fire Marshal and Emergency Management. So under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, we are mandated to have an emergency management program where the emergency control group falls under. Under this umbrella, in our day-to-day, our responsibilities are tied in with appropriate measures we take to mitigate any risk with an all hazards lens across the community, prepare for any emergency, respond to any type of emergency, and recover from. So under that umbrella of building out community resilience, we want to take the approach of attempting to build back better and learn from these response measures that are in place so that each year we're better prepared for any emergency that occurs.
So, thanks for that, Amber. So just to follow up on that, this group meets, and you can talk about that in a few seconds. How often does it meet? And the reporting mechanism that you have, which is phenomenal. We receive reports every single day, pages of them that Amber puts together through her team. And we talk about, she mentions everything from incident report actions to community risks, vulnerability, public health, and so on. And this has been going on for 4 months. And the work that comes out of it and the information that comes out of it is incredible. Amber, can you talk to us about that so the public understands all of these pieces that come together, that we just go out every day, do our thing, we mow our lawn, we do this, we drive our car to the grocery store, go back home with our masks on, and you do so much more to allow us to do all that.
Thank you for that, Angelo. There are certainly a lot of moving parts, and I think the best way to describe it to all of our listeners this evening is to think of how you put together a puzzle. Typically, when I'm teaching my kids about putting together a puzzle, we talk about building out the outer parameters and then building in. So when I look at those outer parameters in terms of reporting, we look at receiving all of our incident reporting from the Office of the Fire Marshal and Emergency Management, under which resides the Provincial Emergency Operations Center. This is where we gather all of the information and receive all of the information from the province. So we have that daily reporting in to the municipal emergency manager, which is myself, so that we can share that snapshot of information with key representatives across the city in hopes that we understand and have that whole picture coming together from that provincial standpoint. From there, we build in and we say, what is the region reporting out on today in terms of public health? Because we operate under our upper tier and we collaborate across with our lower tier neighbors to get a full understanding of where we are today and the collaborative efforts that are going on across the board so that we can work together and continue to report out the appropriate risk measures and the mitigation tactics that are being employed each day. From there, we take all of that and we convene, we were convening daily as an emergency control group, which essentially is our decision-making body that comes together and says, from a department standpoint, these are the risks. From a city standpoint, these are the risks today. From a regional standpoint, here's where we're at. And from a provincial standpoint, this is where we're at. What are our next steps? What are our action items for this 24 to 48 hour period? And then we consolidate all of that action planning, and we share that with council, with members of our leadership team. We share that with community volunteers who have come together so that we can continue to be transparent with those that are involved, so that everybody can have a broader understanding of what is going on each day, so that we can continue to effectively respond and recover from this emergency situation.
Amber, when you have an organization like yours, I'm sure fire, police, hospitals, health are all part of it.
Yes.
But a group like yours must report to someone. Who is that person that you ultimately report to and has control over the this group that you've been able to put together?
Yeah, so the emergency control group essentially reports into the Provincial Emergency Operations Center, and that provincial overarching body is who we send our daily reports into for approval and awareness.
Thank you for that, Amber. It's pretty interesting work that you do, and we certainly appreciate it. My next question is a bit of a, not a tricky one, but it's sort of crystal balling here. The group has done such a magnificent job keeping us stable. What is the biggest challenge right now for the emergency control group?
The biggest challenge. That's a loaded question, Anthony or Angelo.
Yeah, well, challenge, concerns, those kinds of things. Yeah, a little bit loaded, but this is what television's all about.
I honestly, I think the greatest challenge now is combating the impacts on mental health and wellness across the community, as well as across the corporation. When we see the magnitude of response that's taking place and the amount of time and energy being placed into the planning and the mitigating and the responding to, it seems to be taking a toll. So we're trying to reach out to those that specialize in mental health to say, what are you seeing? How are you responding to this? And how can we support these community-led initiatives to mitigate these impacts? Because we're going to see a lot of long-term impacts, I think, in the psychological and sociological impacts to this emergency. And I think we need to be even more prepared and more informed so that we can effectively respond, especially to our vulnerable populations. So I think that's going to be our greatest need going forward. And I think that really starts in our partnerships with the community through the task force, which we can talk about that shortly. But I think it's a unique impact that I think is going to be seen across Canada, and we're going to see it in the US, and we're going to see the global impacts over time.
Amber, one of the aspects that I haven't heard you talk about is the economy, because that the economy is an important element as well as the well-being of the community. But what is your input to the economy and building it back up?
Yeah, so we have partnered with local economic groups such as Team Burlington through our task force and our community risk and vulnerability branch to identify what the socioeconomic impacts are today and how we can continue to partner with that community going forward, to your point, so that we can build back better, learn from this, and continue to build through our recovery phase.
Well, what have you learned? And I know it's an ongoing learning
Yeah.
process, as it is for all of us. But what have you learned are the deficiencies in our systems that that you need to repair and get better going forward?
Um, I will start by saying, I'm not an expert in that domain by any means, but from a very high level, from what I've observed so far, is that, we need to be able to partner even better with local businesses to understand where the impacts are personally as well as physically to their business, and how we can help support them. I know we've done a great job by implementing curbside pickup and having local businesses be able to open up their pop-up patios. Things of that nature have really helped us work with the economy and our local businesses, but I think we still need to continue to work with them and build back better and learn the detrimental impacts to their business model and help them build that out better. And again, I will say I'm not an expert in this area, but from a high level, I'm seeing our response efforts are very effective, but we can always do more and we can always do better and learn from this. So the idea going forward, to your question, it's in hopes that we will continue to partner with local businesses and incorporate that into our recovery plan.
Thanks for that, Amber. You touched on things like mental health. I want to bring in this community task force group that sort of dovetails with some of the things that you're involved with. Can we talk about that and maybe have our audience realize that, yes, there are mental health issues out there, and those are things we're going to need to look at as we move forward. There are financial issues, in terms of families. There are food issues that we're starting to realize that people, have to make decisions whether they have to buy food or whether they have to, do something else. Can you talk about that community task force and how they dovetail into what you're doing?
Yeah, so I can honestly say that I am so proud to be a part of the city of Burlington throughout this whole endeavor, because our response efforts are very different than what I've seen across Canada, in that we have really, really engaged with the community. We launched this task force as an interconnected arm to the emergency control group in hopes to bring the community together and partner with them in the response. And initially, this group was formed to support the hospital and to look at ways in which we could support surge capacity if need be. But then over the last few weeks, this group has transformed into more of a collaborative network to support ongoing issues when we look at the economy, when we look at the financial constraints that are put on our local economy, when we look at mental health and the sociological and psychological impacts across the board, and when we look from a customer experience perspective, when we want to be able to provide all of our critical and essential services as effectively as possible and look at resuming our services, the best platform that has been built out has been this task force. We have brought together over 40 stakeholders, and I'm so grateful to see, the mayor has been sharing this group and brought it all together, and it has been unbelievable to have those group of subject matter experts that are in the community that that engage with all of our vulnerable populations. They engage with our faith-based organization partners. They engage with our economic community and our local business community. They are engaged with all of our counselors, and they understand their needs. So it has provided them with a platform to share in their frustrations, in their stresses, so that we can have a more clear picture of the very true impacts that are happening across the community, and has allowed us as an emergency control group to say, okay, this is what's brought forward, and this is what's going to drive our next steps to continue to effectively respond. So as a part of that, we realized that this group was more of a strategy, high-level collaborative group where we could share in this platform. So the emergency control group approved and decided to put forward the community risk and vulnerability branch. And this is where we have about another 30 to 40 support staff who have come in and are also trained under our emergency management program to say, we can serve as the boots on the ground to get all of these tasks done in partnership with the community. Now, I've been observing a lot of other municipal responses, and there has been some amazing work that we can learn from along the way. But I will say Burlington is set apart, and we have taken that whole of community approach in our response efforts. And my hope is, because we've been so successful with this model, that we can maintain this going forward when we're looking at future mitigation strategies and when we're walking through this longer, more extensive recovery process.
Amber, one of the major issues is it's great to be able to pull all of these various groups together, but it's the communication with the public that is extremely important, because it's great to do all the work, but if you can't communicate it to the public, it falls on deaf ears. So is there one person, one individual that speaks for the emergency group, or is it the hospital speaks for the hospital, fire speaks for fire, public health speaks for public health? Who is a coordinator of all of these messages so that the public is not confused? Because I'm finding that confusion out there, mixed messages, are detrimental to a lot of the work that you are doing.
Yes, thank you so much for raising that. So another extension that's been formed since the onset of this pandemic has been the crisis communications team. So we convene daily, Monday to Friday at 8 a.m. And that's where we assess what our messaging is throughout the week, what has come up overnight, if there is any immediate communications due to anything that happened in the evening. We make sure that we form that messaging and we understand the medium in which we're sharing that information out to the public. We draft our entire week of internal and external messaging, and then we release that out to the emergency control group so that they're aware of what messaging is going out, both into the corporation, to staff, as well as externally to the public. And then every morning we will review that listing and see where we need to update it and what quick communications need to go out. So I think first and foremost, communication is and does need to remain at the epicenter of any emergency. And I think as we find ourselves in probably one of the most politicized emergencies of our time, communication is more and more important. And I think in the city of Burlington, the mayor chairs that crisis communications group, And we bring together our corporate communications team, the city manager, one of our executive directors, and then we bring in key stakeholders depending on what phase of the emergency we're in, so that we have that technical expertise and that subject matter expertise at the table, so that we identify effective and timely communications that need to be released.
Amber,
That's
Amber,
amazing. Amazing.
Angelo,
I just want to say
we
quickly
get-
that Amber, not only does she do this, she logs all these hours in, but she's also a firefighter every day. She does have a real job. She also has a family to deal with. So we're grateful and thankful for everything that you have put together, and still, get through, our day, our week, and keep everybody safe. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. I will say, Angelo, I'm not a firefighter, but I do work in the fire service, and I do support our suppression staff.
All in the same umbrella.
Thank you.
Well, Amber, I want to thank you very much for explaining exactly what this group does. I've talked to Angelo several times, and I was still very confused about what the group does and how it gains all that information and moves it up the ladder to the province. So I want to thank you very much for joining us today, and best of luck in the future, and keep that communication going, because I think it's very relevant and very important to the public.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's always a pleasure. And again, Amber, thank you and your team for all the hard work that you have done for us, and stay safe.
Thank you. I will add one final note. If anybody has any further questions and they'd like to reach out, you can certainly email me at cemc@burlington.ca. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Amber. Really do appreciate it. Angelo, thank you so much for bringing Amber on and clarifying, at least for me, the whole aspect of the emergency response, because these are strange times, and we're doing our best on the issue and your TV to continue to provide relevant, up-to-date information. And you can check in with Halton News each weekday for local news and updates. So, Angelo, we'll see you next time. And to our audience, we'll see you next week on The Issue here on your TV. Truly local. Stay safe, everyone.